Hello and welcome to Sovereign RPG. I am Sovereign. Today we are back in Ragnarok Origin. Now this is available on the Google Play and iOS stores in the NA region. If you are outside of NA, I will leave a link down in the description and in the top comment for you to get the APK. You have to use that in. You can either sideload that onto your phone or you can go and just put it on an emulator. I'll also leave a link to the LD Player emulator and the BlueStacks 5 emulator if you want to try those out on PC. Today we're going to be looking at Mercenaries, and Mercenaries is all we're going to be talking about in this guide. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, give you a brief description on what each of the mercenaries do, and some recommendations for your classes on which ones you should focus on. Now let's start off in the beginning by just saying you need to focus on only 2 to 3 mercenaries. Any more than that and it starts to become a really big cash sink, and it's going to cost you a lot of resources to upgrade their tributes, to upgrade their levels and their gear. So it's definitely better to focus on 1 until you're up to level 42, then focus on 2 up until they open up the 3rd slot. Now let's have a look at the different mercenaries. Now first up we have Raygene. Now Raygene is your basic tank guy, it's your swordsman. He's basically the same as the character class. If we have a look at his intro, he is a tank. He's a vitality knight. So if you're running as a mage, if you're running as an acolyte, if you're running as a merchant, if you're running as an archer, if you're running as any of those jobs, Raygene is one of the best ones to start off with. Now you're going to start off with this in the beginning. Now you have choices for all of those classes except for the acolyte. If you're an acolyte, 100% go for Raygene, don't go for anyone else. If you are other classes, we could go for Lililiah, but we'll talk about Lililiah in a moment. Now Raygene comes with defensive armor. He has decent attack, but it's not massively high. He's mainly there to hold all the aggro, so you can do damage as one of the DPS classes, or just to hold the sort of aggro while you are healing your 2nd mercenary later on down the line once you hit 42. This doesn't take long. You can do 42 in a day easily. The current server level limit for our server is 45, but you also have that plus on top, so you can get past the 45 mark. But as I said, this guy's just going to hold all of your aggro, and he was my first choice. I got him up. I've been keeping him up with his max level, keeping up with my max level the whole entire time. So Raygene's skill set, you're looking at standard attack. You got normal attack stuff going on here. We got the sturdy strike. Now the sturdy strike will do a certain amount of physical damage and neutral damage, and it will give you 10% physical damage reduction. This is why he's your tank. And we have Lion Howling. This gives 500% plus 100 neutral physical damage up to 10 monsters within the target area. Now this basically is an AoE taunt. He will pull all the aggro of all this stuff, and he will be able to tank those things, especially if you're running the acolyte class like I am. You'll be able to keep it alive, not a problem. And he does a decent amount of damage, especially in the early game, until you can get your 2nd mercenary to do more DPS for you. Now next up we have Juno. This is my 2nd choice. I pick him because he does a lot of single target damage, and the things that I have most trouble with are the bosses and fighting in the challenges when you're fighting those single target things. Now he does have an AoE ability, and he does do a decent amount of AoE damage. It's not the best, there are better. The mage does a significant amount of damage as well, but it also requires a lot of pot. I'm getting invited to one of our guild groups. I'm not going to accept that because I'm making a video right now. Now Juno would be very good in conjunction with the acolyte. As I said, with me personally, I use him that way. You can go for him or the mage. There are other options available. You can pretty much pick whatever you want. I just like to be sort of min-maxy in what I decide to pick and what I need it for. That's why I haven't gone for the merchant. That's why I haven't gone for the mage. Now Juno isn't available to get until level 42. The same with the mage, and you get the merchant around 20-ish, but you'll be able to see that when you go inside the mercenary screen. You'll just go up and you'll click on these guys, and it will show up and it will give you what the requirements are. Go and do this quest, go and do it at this level, and you can go and pick them up. It's just a really short little quest that you have to do to get that sorted. Now let's look at Juno's skills. He has the standard attack. He has trick control. Now trick control does the AoE damage. It does 300% plus 500 neutral physical damage to up to 10 nearby monsters. It's a good amount of AoE. It's got a global recovery and a cooldown of 3 seconds. And then we got red cut. Now it casts the scarlet mark of death and delivers heavy blows to a single target multiple times, dealing 450% plus 300 neutral physical damage in total. Now this is why I use him, because he does does a lot of single target damage to your target. Now, next up, we have Sanji, the sniper. Now, this is personal preference. If you want to go for the sniper, that's perfectly fine. I don't like the sniper. I did use it when I played this game a long time ago on a different server, when I gave it a shot like a year or so ago, and I wasn't really the biggest fan. Now, the skill sets of Sanji. Now, Sanji you can use with any of the actual classes. It's just you can use them as the second DPS. You obviously want to be picking your tank or your healer depending on what class you start with, but as I said, we're going to be going through Lililiah in a moment. Lililiah's with the second choice that you can get right at the beginning, as well as Raygene. Now, what we have is the standard attack, and then we have double strafe, which does 2 arrows at the same time, dealing neutral physical damage to a single target. Now, the single target of this is nowhere near as good as what you get out of the assassin Juno. And then this other skill we have here is attention concentrate, and it basically increases your dex and agility by 10 for 240 seconds. Just the archer's just not really that great, in my opinion. It might be okay for you, and you might have an opinion on it. Let me know down in the comments if you do, but for me, just not that good. Next up, we have Lililiah, the second, like the one of the ones you can pick up right at the beginning. Gonna be your healer. You're gonna be your buffs, and it's going to be doing some of the holy light damage. It's going to be a praise priest, which is what I basically am running my build on, using it on the recommended builds as the praise priest. Going to be your go-to if you're not playing an acolyte. You can use this one as your first go-to. You don't really need the tank at the beginning of the game, and you won't really need Raygene until you get to the 42 mark, where you get your second mercenary sorted out. But this girl just basically heals and does a little bit of damage and gives you your buffs. It's definitely recommended. You got your single target heal here. You got your blessing, which gives you all of your attributes, a bump for 440 seconds, strength, dex, and int, your basic DPS stuff. You got Angelus, increases all base physical defenses by 75%, massive, massive, massive. And this is definitely your go-to if you're playing a swordsman from the get-go, 100%. And you got Holy Light, which is your single target damage dealing ability. 350% plus 220 holy magic damage to them. As I said before, if you're not an acolyte, grab up Lililiah in your first or second slot. Definitely have her there. The buffs are really, really good. The heals are really, really good. It's one of the best mercenaries that you can currently get in the game. Next up, we have Ayumi. And Ayumi, it does a lot of single target damage with Firebolt. Again, personally, I don't think it's good as Juno with the Assassin. And you've got the Cold Bolt, which summons icy arrows above, and it does the same thing. So you do fire damage and water damage. And then you've got Lightning Bolt, which is wind magic damage. Now, depending on what you're fighting, you can turn these on and turn these off, and it will do more damage to certain types. So there is that as a bonus, but the mage is not that great in my opinion. It's an Ice Thunder Mage as a build, and the character looks pretty decent. And I do love mage characters. I just wish this mercenary had a lot more AoE potential than what it actually has. It's pretty much just a single target damage dealer with no AoE whatsoever. So it doesn't help you outside of fighting bosses on its own. You can level her up later on once you get like sort of max level, and you've got your first 2 to 3 mercenaries at max level. I'll probably pick Ayumi as my third slot once that becomes available on the server later on down the line. But for now, on the back pedal for Ayumi. Last up, we have Natalie. Now, Natalie is Combat Iron. Natalie is the courageous merchant, and her skills involve full force swipe, which is in a single target slams the ground, and a shockwave. The attack ignores 10% of physical defense for 2 seconds, and you've got Adrenaline, which the blacksmiths never stop honing their axe skills. It boosts attack speeds of all axe type and mace type weapons equipped by your allies or yourself. It is a good second to go for if you are running an acolyte, and if you want to be running the burst priest, which is basically your DPS melee attack priest, which is very viable, especially if you're doing the leveling. But because I group up a lot with my guild, I am actually running praise priest, so I'm doing all the buffing and the healing, etc. Now, Natalie is a pretty decent mercenary, but it doesn't beat your first, which will either be Lililiah or Raygene as your tank or healer, and it doesn't beat Juno the Assassin. Juno the Assassin is massively, massively good, and he gives out a lot of DPS, personal opinion. Now we've got the actual mercenaries out of the way, let's go into the talent trees. Now the talent trees unlock at certain intervals of levels. You've got 50, 55, 60, and 70. At 50, you'll be unlocking your main primary stat, depending on which one you want to go for. 55, you'll be unlocking which to neutral monsters or large monsters. And if you go to like Juno, for example, we go into his talent, it's small and neutral monsters. So they each have a different thing that they're very, very good at attacking at, doing more damage with. At level 60, you'll get an increase in physical damage or attack speed. And this is all dependent on what character you're picking out. So you'll be taking less damage as Raygene, and you'll be taking less melee, physical, and ranged. And the mage will have ignore magic defense and SP recovery, etc. etc, etc. It all depends on which mercenary you are on. Now, to basically level up your mercenaries, you just go inside and you click on the person you want to level up, and you click the level up button. Now you'll get these picked up from do all of the mercenary quests, because you do get a handful of the items to level up your mercenaries just by completing each of the merc quests and getting them recruited. It does help push it to a certain point, but as you can see, you get quite a decent amount of stuff going on here. I'm going to be good for a little while, and it keeps building up and building up. When you get to a certain point at level 40, you will need to promote your hero. You're going to need to promote your mercenary. Now, this mercenary has already been promoted, but it does cost a little bit of resources, and it costs some zenny to get your promotion sorted, and you'll have to go and do a little quest to get that promotion going so you can go above level 40. Now, when it comes to your gear, you basically just want to, for your main guys, your main two, depending on who you want to pick, whether it's Raygene, Juno, Lililiah, depending on what you fancy, just click max upgrade on whatever ones you're using. Have that always maxed so it helps you kill stuff quicker. When you get to a certain point, you do need to spend some zenny and some coin to actually upgrade that item when you want to go past 41. So to go past 41, it costs 50,000 coin, which can build up. That's why I said you should really only focus on 2 of the mercenaries. Do not focus on any more than 2, because if you're upgrading their weapons past a certain point, it costs a massive amount of coin, and you won't always have that available. You'll end up with like half-assed mercenaries when you should really only be focusing on the 2 that you are using. Now, when it comes to the gear, you can't swap and change it out. The gear upgrades to certain points. It started off as a just armor, standard armor, and then when I upgraded it, it went to refined armor, and then it'll go up higher and higher and higher. It doesn't change the look of it. The only thing that changes the look of the person that you are carrying, so the look will always pretty much just stay the same. I'm a little bit upset about that personally. I would have liked to see them upgrade as I upgraded, so the better armor is you get your acolyte up to priest and then high priest, which currently I'm priest, doing leveling the priest job. And when we get to high priest, so you can see, like, I wish they would have had it to the point where like you have the standard little white stuff going on here, then you got priest, which goes into the black, and then you have this black and white one, which will be the high priest, which is the highest job tier of the acolyte class. Now, why would you want to use mercenaries, and why are they so important? Killing bosses becomes so much easier, farming stuff becomes so much easier, you can get more XP out of the 120 minute time limit that you get when fighting these. So when you send him off to go and do the AFK farming for stuff, 120 minutes is the limit that you've got. It kills a lot of stuff a lot quicker, which gives you more loot drops and more XP. You can't take mercenaries in everything, so like you can take them in most things, but when you take them into group dungeons, the group dungeons are for like groups, so you go in there with other players, and there's certain instances during like the story that you can't take your mercenaries in with you, so you can be fighting a one-on-one versus someone, so you do need to still keep in touch with. And the main thing it really does help with is if you're trying to grind out gear and you're a little bit in between gear, the gear doesn't require any resources like anything that you have to gather, so you can upgrade them past the point that you are, so it does really help you when you're stuck in between getting gear pieces. And that's the mercenary system for you. I hope you guys found this useful. Please let me know down below who your favorite mercenary is. If you have any other questions about mercenaries, you can join the Discord down below in the description. Remember to like and sub if you haven't already. There will be more Ragnarok Origins guides coming out over the next couple of days to weeks. We're going to get all the basics out of the way, and we'll sort of add guides as the servers unlock higher levels. There's a lot of stuff we're going to be going through. The next guide is probably going to be what you need to do on your dailies to make sure you get that done first before anything else to maximize your efficiency in the actual blocked timers of the game. I want to thank you all for watching. Fly safe and avoid local chat scams.